All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Conquer the Mind podcast. I'm very excited today. As you know, Conquer the Mind, if you can really conquer the mind, you can conquer anything in this world. And we really have kind of a serial entrepreneur, very young serial entrepreneur as well. So I'm very excited to really dive into his background, someone that started a business while he was in college. So I'm super excited to kind of look into that as well. And then after graduation, kind of bought a failing business, made that successful, then actually became a franchise owner, also known as a franchisee in the franchise world lingo. And now what we're going to talk about today as well is he founded a commercial cleaning opportunity called Asset Commercial Services. So we have Matt Pencarinha on the podcast today. So Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I'm super excited.
Thanks, JD. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, basically, as the podcasts kind of go now at this point, I really like to dive into people's background to start. And, we've kind of spoken before, and I kind of know you started off in college as kind of that young entrepreneur. So, can you kind of take us back to your college days? What did kind of things look like kind of leading up to that kind of entrepreneurial discovery, or what was kind of your path up and like kind of growing up?
Oh man, I'd always had an interest in business. I didn't know what I was going to do,
Okay.
right? But my start came out of need.
Mm,
So I had a major issue with my Honda Civic that I had in
mm.
college, and I had to get the rotors changed on it, which was thousands of dollars. I don't know what it is nowadays. I haven't had to do that repair since then, but that drained my college kid bank account, right?
Yeah,
And I had about $64. It was something around in the 60s at that point.
yeah,
So me and my friend had talked about doing some sort of business together,
yeah.
or helping in the food world, right? Like, how can we maybe make some food and give it to people who need it, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Well, we decided to buy a bunch of spaghetti at Walmart. And we went and bought that spaghetti, made it, and then turned around and just anyone who, we were lived on campus, right? So anyone that wanted some, we sold
Yeah,
it to them, like $3 or $4 a plate. This is pre-COVID, right?
yeah,
So not as expensive as it would be nowadays, but we made our money back and more really fast, and it turned into a situation where we were making $400 per evening that we did this. We didn't work all day. It was just for just a brief period in the evening. We'd do this spaghetti deal where we would deliver it to students' dorms at the time they
yeah,
wanted it, according to whatever they wanted, a certain amount of cheese or a certain amount
yeah,
of meat and different things like that. So we customized it, brought it to them. It was like DoorDash before DoorDash
yeah.
on a college campus. So
Mm.
it was great. That's what sold me on entrepreneurship. I remember running the numbers on it, and I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life
Yeah.
doing that, and it changed my view. So I was like, I got to figure out how to become a business owner.
No, that's awesome. And we definitely got to address a lot there. So, what year was this? You're saying pre DoorDash, pre Uber Eats, pre everything. And you're kind of thinking of these ideas at kind of a young age in college where I kind of joke around. A lot of people use it as kind of a 4 year vacation, but you really kind of took advantage of
Yeah.
those years. So, what year was things? And, obviously this technology didn't really exist and you're kind of just going out and making it happen. So, I think that's really fascinating.
This was either 2011 or
Okay.
2012.
Okay.
One of those 2 years. I can't remember exactly, but it was I remember we
Yeah.
also I had a business idea to connect people who wanted to make extra money. They could
Mm.
babysit, they could walk
Yeah.
dogs, they could deliver food, things like that. And I went and met with a guy to see what it would cost to build the website. He said $30,000.
Ooh.
Looking back, I should have taken it. I should have done it.
Yeah.
We would have started it, but you don't know until later, right? You just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, you always just kind of got to take that first step and see what happens. But that's really
Yeah.
interesting, kind of diving into that. What was kind of the draw to the food industry specifically? Were you seeing kind of a need there as you were in the college campus? I know going back to my university days, the food there was not ideal. It was a lot of off-campus eating, I would say for sure. So were you kind of seeing issues there? And was it strictly spaghetti focused and kind of, cheese? I'm thinking mac and cheese, which is my favorite meal. But
Yeah.
are you kind of customizing it to all these different things, or what does that look like?
I think, and this gets into why should people start businesses, right? Like, there's so much to, well, you should have this vision and different things like that. I don't think that's the case. For me, again, it was needs based. It
Yeah,
was, I'm going broke. I need some
yeah,
money. What can I sell? And I'm doing my grocery shopping at Walmart next to the college campus in
yeah,
Tennessee. And me and my friend look and see the spaghetti there. And it's what, 12, not even $12 now. I don't know what it is for a box of spaghetti now. It's been so long since I bought spaghetti, but it was cheap.
yeah.
And we thought, man, how many people, how much would I pay for spaghetti?
Mm.
And how many people would that serve? And that's when it hit us. We're like, this one box could 10x our
Yeah,
investment. So we bought several boxes of it and just tested it out. And that's what happened. It was just, it hit us right then when we were just shopping. We both needed to make some money. So there was no
yeah,
elaborate planning to it, which is the beauty of entrepreneurship, right? Sometimes you're,
yeah,
you need it, you need to figure something out, and then there it
yeah.
is.
No, that's really interesting. And I think one of the themes we're kind of seeing on the podcast with a lot of people, because, I think growing up, a lot of people talk about being an entrepreneur. They talk about kind of all these kind of small business ideas, kind of branding themselves, putting their name on a shirt, trying to really kind of build a business. But a lot of people don't actually take those action steps. So I'm always kind of curious what kind of that motivation is that kind of led to that. And it really sounds like for you, just having $64 in your bank account and having no other option but to make it happen. So I think that's really fascinating right there. And one thing I find interesting as well, kind of diving into entrepreneurship and business owners, kind of like the chicken and the egg story, where like what comes first? Like, do you need to have genetics? Do you need to have family? Or can you kind of just have that opportunity show up where you're kind of just putting yourself out there and learning? Did you have family that were kind of entrepreneurs, or do you think it's something you can kind of just develop, or do you think it's something genetic? What are your kind of your thoughts on that?
That's a great question, and there's so much gray area to it.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'll just give my story. Um, I grew up to two scientists. My dad has a PhD in physics,
Oh, wow.
and my mom is a geneticist. So our dinner table conversations were very interesting, but they were beyond me. I didn't get, when talking about genetics, I did not get their
Yeah.
level of mind. My one of my brothers, he is in software development, and my other brother is a surgeon. So
Wow.
they got that mind. I'm the odd man out when
Yeah.
it comes to this. So but my parents were deliberate about pushing us. We had, I didn't really get to know my dad for a while, just because of just some family issues and things like that.
Mm.
So I didn't have a smooth upbringing. It wasn't traumatic by any means, but mom was very diligent about getting me into public speaking, and I hated her for it. I did not want to go do public speaking. She tried to get me in the Boy Scouts. I didn't want to do that. Eventually, I got into ROTC. I thought it was cool because it's military stuff, right? So I did things like that. But eventually, she had got me into enough sports and things to build my confidence.
Yeah.
But I was pretty aimless still. So it was most kids that I
Yeah.
see, whether at my church or family friends, they still feel a little bit aimless and have just a general upbringing where their parents are trying to get them involved in things. So I wouldn't say my upbringing was much different than the common person's. What changed for me
Mm.
is I had my ROTC instructor pull me aside one day and he said, "I'm sending you to leadership camp." And
Mm.
I'm not, this isn't a leadership podcast specifically or anything, but something about that changed my life
Mm.
because I've been this shy kid. I was a sophomore in high school, gonna be a junior,
Yeah.
and I'd never been called to do any sort of organizing of things or running of things because I knew if I went, I'd have to come back and perform and help run things.
Yeah.
No one saw me that way. I didn't see myself that way, but it just took somebody to take an interest in me that
Mm.
wasn't my mom, because mom always loves you, right?
Yeah.
Nothing special about that, even though it's wonderful. But someone else to really trigger that. And so my life changed at that point. That's when I started trying to find direction. And
Yeah.
I figured out, I built some confidence in my ability to at least talk in front of people and organize people into doing things. So that
Yeah.
was what really, I don't know if everyone has that in their life.
Mm.
So that was something special that I had, was that ROTC instructor in high school.
Yeah. No, I think that's really powerful and something I can relate to as well. Literally in the same age when I was in high school, I was a person that would literally shake during presentations and,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of it just kind of growing up and kind of listening to more of my mentors. A lot of it is we kind of are just in our own head, focused more on ourselves rather than kind of the people we're actually talking to and the fact that we're really trying to help other people rather than focusing on kind of the value that we can add. But I think that's really, really beneficial because I think a lot of people are very similar in high school growing up with that fear of public speaking. And, your mom, your dad, they can tell you that you have all the confidence and you can go home and you're probably a little bit different than the way you act in school with all the different people. And, it goes a long way to have someone in your ear outside of your parents that kind of give you that lift of confidence. So I think that's really powerful as someone very similar in that boat. And I think just to stick on that real quick, for people struggling with public speaking, someone maybe anxious to kind of speak in front of other people, do you have like a mindset as you are kind of speaking publicly, especially nowadays as the founder of a company? You probably speak in front of hundreds of people now, from someone that in high school, someone that like me, very anxious, kind of scared to publicly speak, to someone where you are today. What was kind of the transition? What's kind of your mindset as you go to speak? Kind of help someone that may be struggling there.
Uh, so in a school scenario, right? In a high school, college, a practicing scenario in like a speech class, it's a little bit different because it's a
Mhm.
little bit forced, right? And that's what's so
Yeah.
uncomfortable because you don't feel genuine about it.
Mhm.
What really what really addresses the fear is love. So if you love something and you're fixed on it and you're driving towards that thing or you care about the thing, then the fear isn't as big of a deal. It's like, I got to
Mhm.
get this. So yeah, fear, I see that you're there. I might be nervous, whatever. I have something to say because we need to move in this direction. Um, so speaking just to speak is hard. It's real hard to pin down an exact tactic or mindset on it. For
Mhm.
me, it's more like with us building our company, it's hey, we want to become one of the best businesses anyone could own. So
Yeah.
in order to help share that, I got to go talk to this people or this group of people. And I'm just going to be as helpful as I can to try to help them understand why I believe what I believe about this
Mhm.
and help convince them of that. So if you're really trying to be helpful to other people and pointing them in a direction, then it's not as tough. But I do remember going through some speaking stuff, and they'd always say, just be as helpful as you can, as helpful as you can.
Mhm.
But I didn't find that really helped until I had some sort of objective that I was driving towards, something I wanted to build and that I was excited about.
Yeah. No, I think that's a powerful lesson, especially nowadays in schools. If you like can't focus and it's tough, you literally go to school for like 6 hours, 1 hour class, 1 hour class, 1 hour class. Maybe you do sports for an hour, 2 hours, maybe you go to the gym for an hour. But then you do homework for all those six classes, and it's very repetitive, doing the same thing over and over again. And nowadays, we very easily want to prescribe ADHD to someone saying, you can't focus just because that's just not what you're passionate about. And it makes sense. You want to figure out what you're passionate about, then it's a lot easier, I think, like you said, to actually speak about it because it's something that you have that passion, your love about it, rather than in school, kind of thinking about all these books we had to read, all these presentations we had to give. And, you never even get to really pick what side you're on. It's really just, this is what you have, and then find the facts about this. So I think that's a really interesting point. So kind of diving back in to where you are as the founder, going back into your college days, kind of founding that company. That's really interesting. What was kind of the confidence after you graduated college? For a lot of people confused trying to even figure out what their passion is, what job to get. I'm sure you probably had a certain confidence at that point, having already kind of started a business, learning all these different skills, facing a bunch of challenges, I'm sure already. What did things look like once you do start to graduate and kind of selling the business, or what did things look like there?
Right. That's a great question. It's again, it's hard to give an answer to that's going to appeal to everybody or apply to absolutely everyone. But I can give some general thoughts around it. Um, for for me, it was really just doing what made sense long term.
Mm,
It was having that mindset of what is 40-year-old Matt. I'm not 40 yet, but what is 40-year-old Matt going to regret? What
Mm.
is he going to be glad that I did? What's he going to be thankful for? What's he going to wish he did more of or less of? Having that mindset when I was going into
Yeah.
everything really helped a lot because, to be
Mm.
honest, when I graduated college, excuse me, I didn't know. I really did not know exactly how my career was going to play out or
Yeah.
exactly how my business ventures were going to play out. It
Mm.
was, this is the next best option in front of me, and I'm going to take it. So
Yeah.
for some people, like Elon Musk, right? He's in school, he meets a group of guys, they start PayPal, boom. Mark Zuckerberg's at Harvard, they start Facebook, boom. Like some people do happen on those, but how many times does that really happen, right? How many billion-dollar companies come out of a college dorm room or even out of a professional environment? It's so rare. And I think that the attention that those things get really does a lot of damage to the
Mm.
reality, people's perceptions of what it really looks like to
Mm.
start a business and become an entrepreneur. For me, I'm a big believer in just do what makes sense long term as far as career wise. Pick something that's going to pay for your life,
Yeah.
something that you can deal with. Don't aim for your passion yet. If you're still looking for your passion, don't take a wild guess on it. Do
Mm.
something that's basic that you can deal with and then start exploring from there. Have the funds to do it with. For me, that's what happened. Is I went into the restaurant industry. Yeah, I could deal with it. I made plenty of money. I went into a six-figure position out of college into that industry, and I got tons of experience. I didn't love it. It was not my passion, but that I took those skills and applied it once I did know what I wanted to do and applied it to what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So you just keep going, and eventually you find the spaghetti in the aisle. Eventually you see, there it is. Like, that's it. I'm going that direction. See you,
Yeah.
boss.
Get
That's
it.
what you do.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
really interesting and something I can relate to. And I think a lot of people growing up where, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a business owner, and you kind of think just like applying to a job, like you can just do it, like flick the switch, apply to a job, boom, you're an entrepreneur. But it really is just the idea of taking action every day, developing all these different skills, these traits, because being an entrepreneur, as you kind of went through in college, you have to figure out the pricing. Well, first off, you even need a product, then you need pricing, figuring out, the operations, the management, the employment, the labor. There's all these different traits, and it's not just something you can figure out overnight. It really is that learning process. So it's not necessarily like your step 100 right away, but you just kind of know what you want to do, and you keep taking the steps to acquire those skills. So I think that's really interesting, Matt. So as
You assemble those skills and assemble the mistakes.
mm,
Assemble the mistakes on someone else's dollar. So
mm,
don't pay for your own education expense if you
mm,
don't have to. Now you will once you're an entrepreneur, right? You're going to make mistakes. They'll cost you tens of thousands. I've made millions of dollars of mistakes.
mm,
So by the way, that's one of the things I believe in is the bigger your mistakes, the bigger your potential.
mm,
If I'm going to build $1 billion company, I need to make 100 million mistakes.
mm.
That scares me, but
Yeah.
that's not a direct goal, but I have to be willing to accept that. Now, if you can make some of those mistakes on someone else's dime,
Mm,
then why not do the learning there, right?
yeah.
Don't be foolish. Don't be silly about it. Do
Mm,
your best,
mm,
but you're going to learn while you're there.
mm,
So don't be afraid to do that. I was an apprentice, you could say, for somebody
mm.
under a business that was failing. That's the one that I bought and turned around from the guy that was mentoring me. It's kind of an odd mentorship because I felt like I didn't know
Yeah.
more than he did, but I knew some things he didn't. And coming out of business school, and it was a really informal business. And so we had to flip it and formalize it and all that. But
Yeah.
I took those restaurant skills and those restaurant mistakes and learnings and just plugged it right into that system and turned it around.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting and something I was kind of wanted to bring up as well. So pretty early after you graduated from college, you bought, as you mentioned, kind of a failing business and turned that around. Was the confidence to do something like that kind of given your college experience and already starting businesses and kind of starting to see money flow in? Or what kind of gave you the confidence at an early age to kind of dive into an operation like that rather than kind of go the corporate America route and try to get, 5, 10 years of experience there or something like that?
I'm gonna go back to two things. The first thing is Warren Buffett. He
Hmm.
said, all you need to make in your life is maybe 5 to 10 decisions,
Hmm.
and you better be right on those 5 to 10. Now, again, you can strike out on some. but the majority of your life is going to be determined by those 5 to 10 decisions that you make.
Mm.
So I recognized whenever that guy said, "Hey, I'm shutting my business down," and he said he was going to give it to his neighbor who had a competing business. His neighbor did.
Yeah.
Uh, so that I had to address that, right? We can talk about that. So I thought of Warren Buffett immediately. I was like, this is one of those times I could decide. 40-year-old Matt, what does 40-year-old Matt want? What does he want? And what am I going to regret? I decided I would regret not trying.
Mm.
I could, my mentor, he had said, I've got connections with a property management company. I had a relationship with that company. I could have gone to them for a job right away.
Mm.
My wife was still in school at this time. I was 22. So we were young. I had left the restaurant, my secure, high paying restaurant job, I'd been getting paid $10 an hour to follow this guy around. So there's this decision of, I know how this business is doing and how much it's struggling, or can I go get a secure paycheck? Have I learned enough? I wasn't 100% confident. I didn't know how to get business insurance.
Mm.
I didn't know all the tiny formalities that you got to go through. All that I knew is I knew the customers, I knew the issues, and I
Mm.
felt like I could fix it. And I felt like I would regret it if I didn't at least try.
Mm.
So that's when I went back to him and said, don't give it to your neighbor. I've worked for you. I'll at least buy the supplies from you
Yeah.
and take it from there. So
No,
that's what happened.
that's awesome. And I love what you said about those 5, 10 kind of things really defining who you are. And, whether it's those 5, 10 things, 5, 10 events, it's usually just a small sum of things that really define who we end up being in our life. And it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. It's really just how we react to those things. So I think that's really powerful, and how you really just continue to take action when you don't necessarily know what that 100th step is, but you just keep going. And then as you do, you turn that business around, you turn a failing business into a successful business. My understanding is after that, you actually made the investment to become a franchise owner. Can you walk us through what that decision-making process was like? And, how do
Sure.
you go from, having your own business to being a franchise owner? That might seem a little odd to some people, I guess.
Great question. So I bought, it was a cleaning business. They cleaned houses,
Yeah.
cleaned some commercial spaces, some restaurants, things like that. But it was my first real bit. The college one was, just kind of fun. And every once in a while, we'd run an evening a few times a week and make our money and be happy. This was official. People counted on it. They counted on us. Their incomes counted on it. Real jobs, all that. My parents saw how it was going.
Mm.
This one was my first official business, so it wasn't just booming. It wasn't
Yeah.
absolutely Elon Musk incredible type stuff,
Yeah.
but it was well enough, and I had flexibility, and it was helping pay the bills. My wife still had to work some, but I was learning a lot and building some confidence and experience. And my parents, my mom, the geneticist, was like, "Hey, I really don't like where I'm working. I'd
Mm.
like to try my hand at this business thing."
Mm.
So my parents said, "Hey, I had a friend whose dad was selling his franchise. It was a fish window cleaning franchise. He wanted to retire. And so my parents were interested in that, and we went in together on that.
Wow.
So I was a partner, and then I had my other business as well. They worked well together too. It was a symbiotic relationship. We knew about what facilities needed window cleaning and vice versa. We'd run into cleaning contracts through the other business. So they cycled together really well.
No, I love it. And it's so interesting. I always kind of say the families and franchising is you hear a lot of success stories where it just revolves around whether, it's someone buying, their son, daughter business, or, similar example to your own. It's so interesting to watch these families come together. And I always say, if you're going to spend so much time with someone, you might as well kind of work on a business together. It seems kind of like the best of both worlds almost. But I think your perspective is really interesting because you were at franchise owner for, my understanding is about 3 years, and then
Mhm.
you sold the business. And I think something that's really interesting in franchising that a lot of candidates don't necessarily consider is really that exit strategy and how you are building up a valuable asset. And a lot of times people think about kind of what that first couple months are, rather than kind of what their life will look like in that 3 to 5 year span. So can you kind of talk someone through what those first 6 months looked like compared to that 3-year span, and what did that exit strategy look like? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. For us, it was more of a takeover scenario. So
Mm,
they had this was a multi six figure. It wasn't doing millions or anything, but it was a multi
yeah.
six figure franchise location. It was the biggest window cleaning operation in that area out of all the other companies. So it
Mm,
was significant. It was popular. It was a good business.
mm,
Um, the when it comes to this is where, because I've had experience buying existing businesses,
mm,
starting franchises up from zero, franchising our own stuff, starting a business up from zero. So almost every scenario, selling each of those,
yeah.
every scenario you can think of, I've been through it. A takeover scenario is definitely something you need to get some advice on. Either from the previous owner, you don't want to just say, hey, here's the keys, good luck.
Yeah.
But we had to establish that we are the new owners, and this guy is completely out. There's no hope of him coming back because there were some loyalties we had to deal with them not taking our words seriously.
Mm,
Because they had been around longer, we had to ask them some questions. So that's a weird dominant scenario, right? Like my boss doesn't know as much as I do.
mm,
So how does that change the dynamic of the relationship? So there was some,
yeah.
so you just have to let go of some people.
Mm,
You have to identify what is hurting the culture that
yeah.
you want to build and come in. So in each scenario, whether you're starting from zero or you're taking over an existing, there's going to be some sort of difficulty. Starting from zero, you got to build revenue. It's all
Yeah.
about sales, 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 sales. Taking over an existing, it's all about culture. It's
Mm,
about bringing in what you think needs done, and then of course fixing and plugging any holes that are there. Because to be honest, most businesses, I'd say 99%, are sold because they have problems and the owner's just tired of it. If it was a perfect business, like if it's Berkshire Hathaway, right, you can just sit back and let it run. But that's
right.
not the case with most businesses. Now compare that to later on. It does, if you do things right,
Mm,
a business becomes an asset because
mm,
that's the objective. At least for me,
yeah.
is I don't want to work a job that's not going to pay me some months,
Yeah.
right? And then have that continual grind forever.
Mm,
I'm taking the risk because I'm building a private stock, is the way I think about it, with a dividend, which is returns are significantly higher.
yeah.
Uh, I think about it as far as equity arbitrage
Mm,
is another term that I like to use a lot. If I have a business that makes 100,000 a year, I might be able to buy it for $300,000 a year, or for $300,000. So I bought a cash flow, a dividend that's paying me 33%, right?
right.
Now, if I have to work it all the time, then I consider that cash flow lower.
Mm,
But if I can get that business to profiting 300,000 a year, I might be able to sell it for $2 million.
mm,
So that's way more than three times. That's
yeah.
more than six times the value. So I just had this huge stock price jump that I
Mm,
controlled, that
mm,
I managed, and it
yeah.
runs without me. And then you can get it growing without you with your own sales team and your own management.
Mm,
And that's how wealth is really built.
yeah. No, that's really powerful. And yeah, the law of compounding as you are building up that asset, that difference and kind of that annual revenue can really make such a big difference. And kind of leading into the segue as we speak about assets, asset commercial services, we definitely want to dive into that. Can you kind of walk us through? So you've kind of had a lot of experience at this point, as a franchise owner, buying a failing business and turning that around. What were you kind of seeing in, both the commercial or residential kind of cleaning industry as a whole? And what kind of gave you the confidence to kind of take that leap almost, but, having confidence to do so to start where you are today with asset commercial services?
So so my first two, so the first cleaning business and the window cleaning business, I didn't make too much on them because I was a partner in the franchise one, um, and I more acted as a consultant in that scenario.
Mm,
And then my other one, I made all the new business owner mistakes
mm,
about making the wrong hiring decisions,
yeah.
about not knowing how to properly manage people. And when I sold that business, I didn't make an enormous amount when I sold it.
Mm,
But suddenly it was like once I was out of the business, I
Yeah.
suddenly knew how to fix it. It was a strange day. I remember cashing the check,
Mm.
and which was awesome to be able to do that. But cashing that check and getting in the car, being like, oh, finally, it's off my plate.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now I'm remembering what this issue was and where it probably came from. And it all just made sense.
Mm.
So me and my wife did some traveling. She was a travel nurse. It
Okay.
was helpful that she was a nurse, so we did have a good income
Mm.
to depend on. We didn't
Yeah.
live high. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment, but we were saving plenty of money because nurses made good, and they still do.
Mm.
So marry a nurse. If you're not married, marry a nurse. If you want to be an entrepreneur. Um, so the but we traveled, had some fun. We had our first child. His name's Colin. He's 7 now. And we settled down in Asheville, which is where she is from. So everything else previous to this has happened in Tennessee.
Okay.
Uh, I was approached by State Farm because of my experience and connections back in Tennessee, saying, "Hey, you make a good agent." And I thought, okay, maybe it's a good way to learn how to run a business, but also be a part of a larger organization, but
Yeah.
still be my own boss. But when it came down to it, I couldn't truly scale like I wanted to scale. They
Mm.
don't let you have multiple offices. There was just multiple things,
Yeah.
and I didn't like the insurance world.
Mm.
And still, for me, I wanted my thing.
Mm.
I wanted to do something big. I'm a dreamer. You
Yeah.
just got to know yourself, right?
Mm.
So I started thinking, I remember what I did wrong in
Mm.
my previous business. And I took an online course on how to build a cleaning business, and that helped as well too.
Yeah.
So it was good to have some feedback and to discuss some things with people, to join some groups and talk about it before starting one.
Mm.
Uh, so what I did is I decided that the perfect business would be one with recurring revenue, right?
Mm.
You sell it once, it lasts forever. The customer
Yeah.
keeps on buying. As long as they're happy, they keep on buying. So I
Yeah.
don't got to be out peddling sales all the time. It's recession resistant. And I was thinking, all right, so what means recession resistant? Cleaning and commercial and in the medical space. And
Mm.
then that space also has the budget. They have the means, they have the need for
Mm.
exactly what I have to offer.
Yeah.
So that was my idea of the perfect business that could get my wife out of work. Nursing is hard work.
Mm.
So it could get her out of it. It could build a flexible lifestyle. And
Yeah.
that's why I landed there and decided to focus in on one customer type. And
Mm.
that was one of the keys to our success and growing so fast was we just made everything about that one customer, that one medical customer for cleaning for them. And that's how we started it.
That's awesome. And now we are here today with tremendous success. So that's awesome. And I love just the support of your wife as well. And I think that's just really powerful in franchising, just like we are going back, the idea of families and franchising, and especially if you are considering franchising, you meet with a broker, you meet with a consultant, have your significant other on the call. No one else knows you better other than them, and they can give you that insight. And you're both making that investment into both of your futures. So it's really important really to have both of you on the call, and really brokers, consultants role are to listen to both of you and listen to what both of you guys are looking for so that they can better represent you on that journey. So I think that's a really powerful point. And, going back to asset commercial services, you're kind of looking in the industry, you kind of figure out what that niche is. Is that still kind of what the niche is? Is that what the focus is? Can you kind of dive us back into, you founded in 2015. What did kind of things look like? And I understand you started franchising in 2022. So what kind of gave you the ultimate confidence to start franchising the business after a couple years?
So we started in 2019 is when we
Okay.
started the brand. And I developed one of the problems I wanted to solve was hiring.
Mm.
So there's something I've heard. I'm sure everyone's heard of the Hormozzi's channel. There's Layla and Alex Hormozzi.
Yeah.
Um, I love how they verbalized this because it's so true. And it's don't try to get rid of the downsides of your upsides. So recession resistance, recurring revenue, all the fantastic features of owning a large commercial cleaning business, big budgets, big money, all that stuff. Fantastic. Downside, people. The downside can be labor.
Yeah.
So a lot of people just get frustrated with why is it always a problem? Well, we
Yeah.
decided to take that approach of how can we just not try to get rid of it, but how can we just manage it better? Taking the advice of that. So in 2019, we developed an automated hiring system. And
Mm.
it was by we, it was me. It was like my business took 10 to 20 hours a week to build. And then
Yeah.
on the other side of it, I was building all these systems on the back end. Like, if I can I just solve this thing? And we
Yeah.
did. We got to where this system could bring in an enormous amount of applicants that were interested signing up for interviews every single day.
Oh, wow.
And it got completely rid of the turnover problems that a lot of our competitors have. And the meeting I was just in before our podcast here, I was showing them the system. We were talking about how it's going to help support their consistency and quality of service
Yeah.
because we have something that other companies don't have, and that's the ability to have staff there all the time. We so we so we developed that, and we actually looked at franchising in December of 2019. And
Okay.
then I had a meeting set with a franchise consulting company because we grew really fast. So we
Yeah.
did about 5 years of commercial cleaning growth in 1 year. Our FDD shows that. So we started from zero in January. We went all the way up to about 46,000 a month in recurring revenue
Mm.
within 12 months. So
Wow.
that's over $500,000 in recurring, right? I could sit back and just, it's
Yeah.
there. It's just always going. It takes most companies a lot longer to reach that point. So we did that in 1 year. So I decided, hey, we got the money now. It changed my life.
Yeah.
Let's franchise this because I know what it was like being in a franchise. I knew what I did like and what I didn't like, and I loved helping advise other people on how to build their own business. That's
Mm.
where I'm passionate. I found that by
Yeah.
walking the spaghetti aisle, right, of experience and seeing it. So, anyways, February is when we had the meeting. COVID hits the day before the meeting.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, the market tanks. And the sales guy reached out to me, and I was just like, hang on, we got to wait. So I didn't know what was going to happen during COVID, and we did great during COVID. And so we picked
Mm.
the interest back up the next year, started the process in 2021, and then became official in 2022.
That's awesome. And I definitely understand the power of recurring revenue, but I think a lot of people kind of discount that idea of once you put in the work and you get a client, you get a customer, or there really is a difference between a client and a customer, actually. A customer
Yes.
is someone that's just going one time. Maybe you're on vacation, you forgot some sandals, you got to go to the store, you're a customer. But a client is someone that's going back on the monthly basis. They're providing that good, that value, that service by someone so that they keep coming back. So I think that's really, really powerful where you're putting in the work once to get that client that they keep coming back. So like you said, you're not every day trying to sell new people on some new concept. You already have that recurring revenue. And then as you talk about with building an asset and asset commercial services, now as you are building up that monthly recurring revenue, you can start to get an idea of what that asset will be worth. And then as the monthly recurring revenue does increase, like you said with, the law of compounding earlier, it really does take off as you do start to build that up. So I think that's really interesting. And going back to kind of the employee software, really three things that you kind of hear a lot with candidates, one, the ROI and the cash flow. And, we're kind of restricted with what we can say and what we can't say. But if you are interested, obviously we'll walk you through the process. You'll see the FDD, you'll see all the financials. So no questions will go unanswered. You'll be get a complete picture of the financials if you are interested. But I think we've kind of gone over that with the recurring revenue, building up that asset. Number two is really employees, hiring people, and just kind of diving into that software a little bit. So, you are a franchise owner, you do make that investment, you're trying to actually hire people to do the labor. So your software will actually find people for that franchise owner to do the labor. And then what about kind of finding those clients as well to actually find those hospitals and those clients? What does that whole process look like?
A great question. And to be clear on the automated hiring system, which is just one of our systems that we've developed, I see
Yeah.
us as a technology company that happens to be in cleaning.
Mm.
That's something else I learned along the way is uh, I'm not passionate about cleaning.
Yeah.
I don't get up every day thinking, oh, I can't wait to go see my team clean some buildings. I
Yeah.
love building a business. I
Okay.
love building things, and that's where my passion lies. So the automated hiring system is one of those systems that was built from that passion, and it helps process volume of applications. We have tons of methods, and it communicates with everybody, invites them to interviews. It can do some basic selection of who to move forward with, who to not, and to message them and all their results and stuff. It's awesome. So that's the specifics on that. Now on the marketing system side,
Yeah.
on finding customers, we have a software. It's pretty scary where technology is nowadays, right? We have a software that lets us know whenever a company in that market might be looking for cleaning services.
Oh,
So we
wow.
send every single time something pops up, a franchisee gets it. We send it straight to them. That's just included. There's no extra fee or anything for that. We just send those
Yeah.
leads straight to our franchisees. We call those market insight leads. We also have what I call our clean launch program. It is what it sounds, right? Let's get a launch of your business. Let's get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
That comes with the franchise as well, where we set a certain number of appointments depending on the market size that you're starting out in. We blast the whole market with 15,000 emails that are
Yeah.
automated. It looks like it's coming from you. So it really starts to get your attention out there. And there's several other things that we would do with that. Obviously, we have Google Business Profile Management we do to get our franchisees on the map and at the top of Google, getting those leads from people that are actively looking for a
Yeah.
commercial cleaning service. We have all the support material
Yeah.
that's available that we used, by the way, just a moment ago to close this, our largest account ever. We
Yeah.
used these materials to close it. So we're not in the game to win small once a week accounts. We're in the game for big facilities that absolutely need our help because that's what's recurring and
Yeah.
that's what's recession proof.
No, that's that's incredible. The technology, the software, and I think that's a good point. Really being that technology company that specializes in the cleaning. And I really also like the point of, you're looking for business owners and not people that are actually looking to clean. I
Right.
think that's really powerful where you have all these systems and these resources in place. And going back to those three things with the ROI, employees, and then lead generation, you guys are really taking all the hardship out of the process to really allow people that are curious about being a business owner to thrive. So I think that's really, really powerful. So I understand, can you kind of help someone understand if they are interested? How long does it take to get started, to be operating? Is it a home service business? Do you need an office? What does it kind of look like to get started?
Great question. Uh, as far as the where would you work question goes,
Mm,
anywhere.
yeah.
Obviously, you'd need to be in your market. So we have franchisees, two of them in Austin. We had to split the city in half. It was so big. There's no way you could take that city over in less than 10 years. But they don't need an office. You can do all this out of your home, which is how I started. The only reason that I have an office is because my wife wanted me to take my mess with me because I had so many experiments, so many things I was trying. But other than that, all of our franchisees can work from home. Um, the speed of time to start, if someone's interested, we have what we call our discovery process. It usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks. It's several meetings where we go into detail on all the systems of the franchise, obviously reviewing the FDD,
Yeah.
and we actually invite everyone to come out here to Asheville, North Carolina, and actually walk into the original one. Let's go see some
Wow.
buildings together. Come meet me in person. Come meet our staff. Come ask questions because we
Yeah.
want you to really understand your investment. That's another Warren Buffett thing. If you don't understand it,
Yeah.
don't do it. Don't do it. I've made that mistake before.
Yeah.
So come understand what's going on. From that point, once someone is comfortable and they're ready to make their investment and to start a whole new journey,
Yeah.
we can get started the next day as far as training goes. We can train virtually.
Yeah.
Again, we're going to invite people to come in person at least for a couple days. We have had some scenarios like our franchisee in Anchorage, Alaska, who couldn't come. It was just way too expensive to fly that far to come in person. So we did a lot of training virtually
Yeah.
and got them up to speed. From start to revenue, so this is where the investor has to be thinking long term. And this is why we value working with professionals, people who, especially if they have sales experience in the commercial space, they
Yeah.
know that it can take some time for buyers to make decisions.
Hmm.
So most of our franchisees will have their first customers within that first 3 month span, but it's not going to be an enormous amount. For me, By the end of my first 3 months, we were at, this is in the FTD, so I can share it.
Yeah.
We were at about 1,700 a month. It was like 1,695 or something.
Mm.
Now at the end of month 6, we're starting to clip, around 10,000 a month.
Yeah.
But then by the end of month 12, we're around 46,000 a month in recurring revenue, right? So that's the name of the game is building up the interest, following the systems, using the systems, doing what we've done that works,
Yeah.
and you build that compounding interest. And eventually you're in line for all these facilities that are ready to make changes, and you're their next bet. Not
Yeah.
even bet, you're their next choice, and they're looking forward to working with you.
Yeah. I love it, Matt. I'm excited myself. It sounds like an incredible opportunity.
We can talk later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know our time's starting to wrap up, so I want to be conscious, and this hour definitely flew by. I'm realizing I still have like hundreds
I
of other
know, I
questions.
know. I was looking at the time too. I was disappointed.
Yeah, I'm ready to go another hour. But this was really awesome. I appreciate your insight. One couple other things real quick. As we kind of understand, it really is a two-way interview process, and you're very passionate about the business and helping other business owners. You're obviously looking for that ideal candidate. You're evaluating people to actually looking to grow and scale that business. Can you talk to someone that may be interested in what is kind of that ideal candidate for you? What are you kind of looking for in terms of kind of growing the business for you guys? What does kind of that look like?
Right. Our ideal candidate has a net worth of at least $100,000.
Okay.
And I can explain why here in a minute. And at least, cash on hand of about $50,000. They've got some sort of sales experience. They don't have to have it, but some sort of either sales or client account experience. So they
Okay.
know what it's like to work with commercial accounts and buyers. They know what it's like to follow a 9 month long sales cycle, until they win the account. Those are the strongest performing franchisees because they don't get frustrated when they encounter that first, like, hey, can you wait in for 3 months before we make a decision? For
Mm,
most people, that's a long time, but if you're used to commercial sales, that's short. So
yeah.
someone who's used to that, if they have connections, this is another big thing too. One of our franchisees, when he came on, he knew a lot of people. He had a lot of friends. I can't share his numbers yet, but he was doing very well,
Mm,
very fast because all his friends that ran all these facilities said, "Hey, when you change, let us know." So it's someone who wants to capitalize on their network and do their friends a favor. That's the thing is let me do my network a favor by being a better choice for them than what they're having to deal with right now because this market, commercial cleaning, is full of mediocrity.
mm,
So when we bring in professionals and take it to that next level, you stand out and it's a lot easier to win.
mm.
Um, so those are some of the hard things that we look at.
Yeah.
Uh, the reason for the net worth requirement is we found that if someone is able to achieve a net worth of $100,000, so that doesn't mean 100,000 cash. That just means that minus their debt.
Okay.
So their house can count towards that.
Yeah.
Their stock portfolio, their retirement can count towards that, that kind of thing. It just says that this person has been diligent enough and driven enough to at least have done decently well for themselves in an employment situation or if they did own another business. Um, it's a good pre-qualifier for we can count on that same diligence whenever they're handling the brand, right? Because they're going to have
Yeah.
brand rights. So we got to be very careful because this is an exclusive opportunity. We're not putting multiple franchisees. They're going to share the same territory.
Mm,
Your territory is your territory, and
yeah.
so it's yours to run with. And we want to be sure that we have a good candidate that's taking care of that area.
Mm. That's awesome, Matt. Well, I know our time's definitely wrapping up now. I'm gonna try to squeeze in another question or two if I can.
Sure.
But I know when we spoke, you talked about your why is really giving that local ownership, but providing them with those entrepreneur systems. Can you kind of just speak on the significance of that? And I think it just does a really
Sure.
good job of explaining just the power of franchising and really just empowering other people that do want to take those next steps or are looking for something else in that career. So I think you did a good job speaking about that. So I'd love to kind of hear your insight on that.
Sure. And this goes into our pitch for our franchisees.
Yeah.
Like this is what I used today. Me and our operations manager, Shane Henderson here in Asheville, North Carolina, when we sat down with them, essentially our idea was we are locally owned with enterprise systems
Mm,
because you're out there competing with big guys, right? This account that we were working with, there were companies there that were 20 times, if not 100 times our size,
Yeah.
potentially doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Mm.
We can compete with them because we have maybe even better systems than they do.
Mm.
But we have the care and concern that the customer wants that the big dogs can't provide.
Mm.
And that's why franchising is we wanted to bring something new to the market. There's other franchises that kind of use their franchisees as managers. So, hey, here's some brochures, here's an email address, and here's a PO system, right, to get invoices and get paid. Uh, Good luck, go build your business. For us, it was we want to make our local owners as effective, if not way more effective than the large ones, but they're there to take care of anything the customer wants. So it's actually an easier sell for
Mm.
our owners because they have what a combination of concern and care, but also systems that nobody else in the market has.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. It's definitely an incredible opportunity for anyone that is really looking to take control of their future and really be an entrepreneur and not someone that needs to be passionate about cleaning or hospitals or any of that. It's really just someone interested in business ownership. So, one last question as we wrap up
sure.
our time. So, someone, as you kind of mentioned, you've bought failing businesses, you've started businesses, you've been a franchise owner, you've been a founder, you have a lot of experience, evaluating business opportunities, evaluating risk, a lot of potential franchise owners, they're trying to hedge their risk. Can you walk someone through what your decision-making process looks like in terms of what gives you the confidence to take that kind of hedged risk to a certain extent?
Sure. A couple things with that um, is what is risk, right?
Mm.
Risk is simply lack of control, lack of information,
Mm.
amplified by time, right? Or volatility. So if you, and that's the appeal of franchising, right? You want to evaluate what amount of information am I going to get? What amount of control am I going to have in
Yeah.
this situation? That's what I didn't like about the State Farm thing. I didn't have much control. So, but if you can control it and if you know exactly what you need to do, then your risk is only on you. It's on it's on your information you know about yourself. Am I diligent? Am I consistent? You are the risk at that point. So that's typically how I look at it. That's why personally I don't invest in real estate. I don't invest in stocks. I am my best bet because I know how to control it. And if I can get the right information, then I know how to execute on it.
Mhm.
And with a franchise, it's like buying a time machine, right?
Yeah.
You could go through what I did and take a decade to figure it out, or you can just day one have it, right? Over the
Yeah.
course of, let's say, 2 weeks of training, you can just download a decade of knowledge
Yeah.
and warp yourself ahead a whole decade
Mm.
of experience and start implementing. So the risk, it really comes down to that. How much can you control your investment?
Yeah.
How much do you know about your investment, which is why you should go visit whatever opportunity you're looking at and read all the details, read the market, understand the demand, which we help our candidates do. Um, and then how long would it take? How long is it going to take versus how long would it take if you were to do it yourself, your cost of mistakes and things like that.
Yeah. No, that's super powerful and just being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And like you said, leaning off someone else's hardships that does have that industry experience for literally a decade plus going through the challenges, working at different companies, learning what works, what doesn't work. I think that's really powerful for, like we were kind of talking about earlier, you can't just snap your fingers and be a business owner. But in franchising, it allows you to have those systems, that support team, so that if you have spent a couple years building up the strengths in other different ways, you don't necessarily need to have this Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos like idea. You just need to have this idea that you want to take control of your future. You want more for yourself. So I think you dropped a lot of gold today, Matt. And one of my major takeaways as well is, one of the things you mentioned is you were kind of talking about yourself kind of growing up, kind of looking at yourself. You said, I wanted to look at my 40-year-old Matt. I think that's just so powerful where at a younger age, you're picturing yourself when you're 40 years old, kind of later down the line, whether it's, 5, 10, 15 years, thinking about what'll make you happy, what's kind of the happiest version of Matt. And I think that's a lot of us today. We get so caught up in so many distractions, sports seasons here, football season, that's quickly 4 or 5
Oh
months
yeah.
past for a lot of people. So I think it's just very, very easy to get lost in life's distractions. So I think it's a good lesson to, just take some time to think about what does, the 5 year version of you look like? What would make yourself happy and how can you start to proactively take those steps? So Matt, I greatly appreciate your time on episode 14 of the Conquer the Mind podcast. I definitely learned a lot, and I think the viewers will too.
Thanks for your time, JD. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.